Testing. All right. You can cut out that other.
Hey, yo, aim. Yeah. Run it up, Blondo.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Central Texas Football Podcast. I'm Kenney Heath coming to you live from Worldwide Headquarters in Huron, Texas. And Ryan's off today, so we got Terry here from sideline to sideline to fill in. Terry, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, man, this is my favorite week of football. Been talking with coaches and, of course, doing the show last night. I love, state championship week. I love all the high school playoffs, college playoffs, NFL playoffs. But this week right here, man, from tomorrow when Detroit plays till Sunday is just nothing but football, and I just absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's I've heard it said by other people, but, this round of the playoffs, the region semifinals, you get a lot of great matchups, and it's kind of one of my favorites, I guess, too. You kind of bounce around and look at different games. Had a pretty good week last week, man. Some good games in the Central Texas area, and we'll kind of review a few of those as we go down our list. And man, it's the Central Texas area is kind of shrinking here, and we know we're guaranteed one game to cover next week because Mart and Bremond play each other, but we could have just that one, but I think we'll have plenty. Let's start off with our Matt Step question of the week, like we always do. So I send Matt these questions every week. So hey, let's talk about games that might not be getting as much attention as but would be big news if the underdog wins. So let's talk about La Vega, Lamarck, and Lexington East Bernard. And Matt Stett says Lamarck's a great story out of Houston, a historical program that's gone through a lot but has risen from the ashes. Their head coach, Wade Oliphant, was a state title winner as an assistant at George Ranch, and he slowly built this program. The problem against La Vega is I think the Pirates do everything Lamarck does well, just a little bit better. What do you think?
Exactly. 100% what he said. And, this is a storied program in a city that's just, it's just been economically depressed for a long time now. For the longest time, this program made that town. And then, their legendary coach, Dr. Mike Jackson, retired. And since then, man, they have just been afloat. I mean, you look over the last 10 years and it's been nothing but 3-8s, 2-7s, 5-5s. Oliphant came in, had that winning pedigree, established a really good system with what he has. Offensively, man, they are stacked, but Matt's exactly right. Everything they do, La Vega does. These two teams mirror each other, except for La Vega does it a little bit better. And La Vega has the pedigree. And I know people are going to point back to that La Vega-Stephenville game, and it was bad. We were there. But there's two things. A, it's non-district. And B, La Vega was really, really beat up. And they made the decision, rightly so, to not play some guys in a game that didn't matter. And also, I don't think they're going to play Stephenville next year. I think this is going to be a really, really good game. I just think, man, when you look at that passing game from the Pirates and that defense, it's not the old La Vega defense. It hasn't been for a few years now, but it has become a when they need to make a big stand, they tend to make a big stand. And I think like they did against Robinson I think Robinson was 0 for 2 on fourth downs in the fourth quarter. And I just think that the La Vega's rolling right now.
Well, talking about the history of Lamarck, I remember, when I was a senior, junior high school, I was watching them play state championships against Stephenville down in Austin. And that great running back they had, his last name was Parker. Was it Tim Parker they had?
It was. Well, they had, man, you want to talk about a run of just holy crud rivalries, Lamarck and Stephenville, man, that you just, it was magical, even for me being in a bigger school, a 5A, but to watch these two teams battle each other. And all I ever remember was, man, Lamarck always had guys that could run. Their offensive linemen could run. And that's what they're known for, their athleticism.
Well, didn't they, a few years ago, did they consolidate with Texas City for a while or something like that happened?
I think them in Texas or Texas City took them under their ISD, I think. And if we're wrong, let us know. We could be wrong. I know that they were at one point talking about it. Yeah. And I think that they allowed them to basically be a part of Texas City, but be their own school. Kind of like how Rowlett, where I live, is part of Garland ISD, but it kind of works separate from Garland ISD as well. And I think that's kind of what they did with Lamar.
All right, let's go to Lexington, East Bernard. So Step says, I don't know what to make of Lexington. The Eagles have one of the state's best quarterbacks. Last week, they played their best game of the season on defense, shutting out an unbeaten George West. But this is a dangerous game. East Bernard beat Lexington's bi-district opponent by 3 TDs. Lexington escaped Brazos' upset bid in bi-district. So that alone should have the Eagles' attention. If Lexington plays to their paper, they'll advance. But the lack of consistent play hasn't concerned. And yeah, I think that's a valid point. Lexington, you just kind of don't know what you're going to get most of the time with them. Case Evans is, like you said, one of the best quarterbacks in the state, but he really doesn't light up the stat board. I think he went for 167 and a touchdown last week, and he did throw a pick, but the defense played well.
Man, Lexington's been the talk. We've talked about them. His dad sends us stats from their games and stuff. And, I kind of sometimes feel that maybe we in the media for Lexington kind of judge them a little harsh, because we talked all in the off season and in the off season shows about how last year Lexington underperformed. Yet, I mean, they played 14 games. I mean, and they lost to Tidehaven in a great game that Tidehaven scored a touchdown late to make it 35-21. And then this year, outside of the Blanco game, and look, the Panthers are still alive in the playoffs. I mean, Lexington's done whatever they're supposed to do. Is it pretty all the time? No. You look at that Brazos game, 42-41. But then, as you mentioned, they shut out a very underrated George West team, 29-0. Now, in saying that, I think East Bernard provides a lot of issues for them defensively because of the style of football that the Brahmas play now. This is a team that traditionally ran, and then they kind of went away from that and started throwing the ball more. But this year, they've kind of balanced it out more. But they've got one of the best wide receivers in Amari Jones, and he can pose a true nightmare matchup for Lexington. I think Lexington wins, but this is definitely, I don't even know if you really call it an upset. I just think East Bernard, when you look at their schedule, losing to Goliad, losing to the Woodlands Christian, losing to Ganado, losing to Tidehaven, all of those teams outside the Christian are still playing in the playoffs. That to me is that's a what you call good loss season for them.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's get started on our previews. We just went over Lexington, East Bernard, so we'll skip that one. How about Price, Carlisle, Hamilton, Friday, 3 p.m. in Corsicana? When I think of Hamilton, I think of Halston Hale, their big running back. Kind of, he was their workhorse last year. Definitely their workhorse this year. Last week, 32 carries, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 27-14 win over Mildred, which was really close late, but 2 Mildred turnovers. One got converted into 7 points for Hamilton, kind of put it out of reach for them.
Well, first off, as we were just talking about how we kind of judge Lexington harshly. I don't think we give enough love to Hamilton. And we always, all of us, you and I, we joke about it. We talk about it on sideline to sideline. Talk about it with coaches about this region, and this region's not that strong. And maybe it's not. But I want, again, people to remember that this Hamilton team, after beating Axtell in a classic last year, 15-14, everybody thought Stanford was going to donkey stomp them, and they ended up losing 28-13. And I think we have underrated Hamilton. Now, in saying that, what Clay Baker has done at Price Carlisle, now he's a guy that coached there for 7 years, went to Henderson, his hometown, for a couple of years, decided he wanted to go back to small town football. Last year, they were 1-9. Here they are this year, still in the playoffs, 7-5. All of their losses are great quality losses. They held Mount Enterprise to 32 points. You go, okay, well, 32. Go look at Mount Enterprise and Caitlin Ash, and they're putting up basketball scores week in and week out. They held them to 32 points. They got beat by Brook Hill, a really big private school. They got beat by Shelbyville, one of the most underrated 3A teams because of the schedule they played. Frankston did beat them pretty bad. But, Frankston, we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm still unsure what happened last week with Frankston. I think Hamilton wins this game, but, man, Price Carlisle it's going to be a war. Ivan Garcia, Antonio Ibarra on offense are so electric. Garcia is also a really good safety. I think it's going to be 24-21 type of game. I think Hamilton's going to win, though.
Yeah, and I think the deal about Hamilton is kind of not giving them their due is, coming into the season, hey, they lost a lot to graduation.
Yep.
To get beat by Crawford early, a rebuilding Crawford team that turns out that ends up being a top 10 team at the end of the year. So you kind of just really, and then all the hype behind Deleon with their quarterback, Heston Job, and their new head coach, Whitaker. I think Whitaker.
Yes.
So people kind of just thought, well, they'll be around second. Well, now they're here to third round, and they got a really good chance of making another regional finals. And I kind of feel like it's going to be a repeat of last year. So
I know Axtell wants it to be a repeat of last year. Here, they are chomping at the bit. I got a couple of emails this week from their fans, and one of them basically said, I don't know who I'm rooting for more, Axtell to win or Hamilton to win, because we want Hamilton again, because a lot of people in Axtell felt that game, they lost that game last year as much as Hamilton won that game.
Yeah, I mean, it was, a lot of people were on horn about going for it on that fourth down, but, I liked it at the time. I was in favor of it. The play before that, they actually got the first down. It was the worst spot I've ever seen in my life. A guy come in and mark it 2 yards behind where the other guy marked it, but that's it. All right, let's go to the next one. We'll skip Alvarado, Springtown for the last. Let's go Stephenville, Canyon Randall, Friday, 5 p.m. in Snyder. One of the greatest quarterback names in the state, Trot Jordan, went for 284 and 3 touchdowns last week. Caden Monk had a big game with 147 yards and a touchdown. I really don't see, I don't, you're a statewide, you talk about Canyon Randall. I really don't talk about them, but to me, Stephenville has been the favorite in that region, I guess, since week 0.
Them in West Plains, and I do want to point out one of the fascinating stories this year is the success of Canyon ISD football. 3 of their schools are still playing. To step aside from the Randall, the Canyon Eagles still playing is absolutely shocking. Now, West Plains will beat them pretty bad in the rematch this week, but Canyon's head coach basically went on TikTok and F'd you to everybody and got fired, or I'm sorry, reassigned. And probably working as the, I was always told when coaches get reassigned in the middle of the season, they have to go work out in the bus barn and schedule all the buses. That's like the worst punishment ever. But for them to continue on and bounce back from that, it's very, very awesome. Randall, this is a team built on defense, man. They only returned 4 on offense. They have one of the best linebacker cores led by Dravian Patton. That dude is an absolute beast. Against Canyon, I think it was the last week of the season, he had unofficially 26 tackles. And when a coach tells me that, I'm like, tackles are one of those things that's really hard to, but I went and watched the game. That dude was living in the gaps. I mean, Canyon just could not do anything for him. I think he's going to give Stephenville problems. I think Randall will give the Yellow Jackets problems, but at the end of the day, Stephenville's just as good defensively. Kind of going back to that Lamar La Vega, Randall's defense is good, Stephenville's is better, and then Stephenville's offense is miles ahead of the Raiders, who have struggled at times to score points on the year. Man, the only time they hit over 20 was against some really bad teams. And you look at the West Plains game, they got destroyed 62-7. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think Randall plays it early. And you got to remember, man, the Friday Thanksgiving football is always weird. You're going to have those games where the underdog will be up 2 scores at half, and then somehow the favorite will find a way to pull it out. And I kind of feel like that might what happened this one.
All right, let's go. Deleon, Axtell, Friday, 5 o'clock in Godley. Axtell beat Tom Bean 41-7. The high flying Tom Bean, it really just shut them down. That great quarterback they have up there close to Oklahoma. Levi Leathers, Ethan Porter, AJ Fetch. They got a lot of dudes that you kind of took for granted because Colton Horn wasn't coming back. Tyson Michelle didn't come back. Troy Arley didn't come back. But these guys have really stepped up for Axtell. And you look at Deleon, they beat really a prime time, big time upset, beat Frankston 74-46. Heston Job threw for 8 touchdowns, almost 400 yards. And they got their running game going with Adrian Salinas at 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's got a trio of receivers. I forgot their name, but it's like a law firm, Cook or whatever they are. But Job's got a really good receiving core to throw to. I think this is going to be a great one. I would love to go watch this one if I wasn't going to be up in Melissa.
Dude, what Deleon did to Frankston, Frankston jumped out hot, man. At one point, it was like 25-14. And then Deleon just in the second quarter just pulled hit the throttle and went. They scored 28, 22, and 22. And I mean, this is a Frankston team that, yes, they're new to this scene. I mean, this is a team that had never went 10-0. This is a team that had barely made the playoffs, but just on the field, what they did all year long. And even in this game, there were 16 touchdowns between the two quarterbacks. Tristan McCoy threw for 351 yards and 8 touchdowns. This wasn't a game where Frankston spit the bit. It's a game where Deleon's offense they found a groove and they couldn't stop them. And I don't know what's more impressive, that or what Axtell did to legitimately, I thought, one of the most explosive offenses in Class 2A Division I. And Axtell, I mean, just absolutely just had their thumb on them all day. I think I saw where Tom Bean was like 1 for 18 on third down conversions. Very impressive. Now, so we've got strength versus strength. Offensive Deleon versus defensive Axtell. So I always go, let's look at the other side of the ball because that's where the game's going to be won. And for me, Levi Leathers has got to have a huge game for Axtell to win because I do think there will be points scored in this game.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Deleon just finally put it all together. Lost a close one to Hamilton for the district championship. I think they turned the ball over a couple of times. Never could play that complete game. Now, I guess giving up how many points they give up? They gave up 46 points to Frankston. I don't know if that's a complete game, but offensively they did. They just scored at will. Like you said, 16 touchdowns between both quarterbacks. I like Axtell in this one. I'd like to see the rematch. We talked about it just a while ago. I'd like to see the rematch, but should be a great one.
I agree. I think Axtell will win. And I will say this, again, I think the 46 is also, you got to remember, Frankston, really special offense this year. But I go back to last week, or the week before technically, when they held a very explosive Wolf City offense to only 28 points, and H.D. Davis, who could run all up and down the field. So I do think Axtell's got to figure out a way to diversify the offense a little bit, like Frankston did. But I do think Axtell will figure it out.
All right, let's go to our only kind of local matchup here. Bremond, Mart, Friday, 6 o'clock. And Mahia, Bremond beat Grapeland 53-32 last week. When you think of Bremond, you think of Tank Scott, who's all-world 2A player on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. They got the coach's kid at quarterback and Gazowski. Mart really kind of finding their groove. Didn't really look good there at the end. That lost to Gothway, but Coach Lancaster's got the Panthers moving. They're really running the ball well. I think they rushed for over 400 yards against the Lovelady. I've seen Ahmad Scott and Quinn Preston both play. Kind of a lightning thunder type deal. Quinn Preston's a big dude that's going to run some people over, and he's got some speed. Ahmad Scott is really quick. And Mark played them really, really close that first game. So it's hard to beat a good team twice. I don't know. What do you?
Well, we had this discussion yesterday on our Sideline to Sideline 2A show. And, I brought up, hey, look, everybody thought Mart was down this year, and here they are in the third round. And Grant did make a point. Look at their playoff path. I mean, they got the fortunate to where they got to play Cumbie, a district champion. And no offense to the Trojans. I talk about them on my show on KETR out of Commerce because Cumbie's right down the road. And then they play Lovelady. And Lovelady's a solid team, but they're still, I wouldn't call them world beaters. So I don't know if Mart's actually back yet or not. Now, you're right. They played Bremond close. But, I mean, that's because these two teams freaking know each other. They always play each other close. Last year, it was 28-22, if I remember correctly, in the district play. And back in 2 years ago, when I don't did they play them 2 years ago? Let me look. No, they didn't play. 3 years ago, it was like 28-27. I think those two teams know each other. But at the end of the day, I'm trusting in Tank Scott. I have a funny feeling he's going to probably touch the ball in many different ways, maybe 30 to 35 times, and he'll probably end up with 15 tackles on defense. Give me Bremond, and I don't even think it's going to be actually close. I think they'll actually beat Mart by a couple touchdowns.
Yeah, and that'll set up a great region finals, more than likely, with Mount Enterprise and Bremond.
That's going to be a game. If you're going to, it'll be 6 hours because those teams will not stop each other. It's going to be crazy. Well, actually, I could see Bremond stopping Mount Enterprise, but Mount Enterprise hasn't stopped anybody all year.
All right, let's go 7 o'clock Friday in Melissa at Kennedy Stadium, Pottsboro, Whitney. So this is a game I'm kind of partial to. We're not broadcasting this week. Ryan's decided to book a cruise 2 years in advance, so he's gone. And not a whole lot of people picking Whitney. Not a whole lot of people picked Whitney last week. I think if you're Whitney, you're really going to have to look at Caden Humphrey, because this dude is what makes that offense and that defense go. He makes plays on defense. He's thrown for over 3,000 yards, rushed for over 1,300 yards. He's got a good set of receivers to throw to. It's going to be a tall task, but if you look at Whitney, got up early on Winsboro last week, 22-0. Let Winsboro climb back and actually took a lead, 31-30, and then Whitney kind of came back and kept a 2-touchdown lead there till the end. And with Kobe Haynes and Jonte Johnson, it's hard for me to bet against this team, but I think this is going to be another bar.
Well, I mean, I picked Whitney last night, and Grant went with Pottsboro. I mean, these teams mirror each other. Both of them can score on anybody. Both of them struggle defensively. Pottsboro tends to, their wide receivers flip over and play corners, and you can kind of see they kind of try to zone them and keep them fresh for offense, and you see where teams can make success on them. Now, he points out that Pilot Point game, and they held Pilot Point to 14 points after Pilot Point jumped up on them early in the game, 14-7, and he's right, but Pilot Point only runs the ball. And Pottsboro was able to focus on that, and Pottsboro is a bigger team than Pilot Point. I think with Whitney, we're talking about an offense that, I think one we don't give enough credit for, a team that had a major injury early just kind of kept going. And you really, if you just look at the scores, you would never know that. And I think this is a 56-55 type of game, legitimately. And I'm going with Whitney just because. I mean, I really don't. This is one of the true pick'em games, in my opinion.
Yeah, and last week, I was, the Winsboro game, I was really surprised that Winsboro didn't try to get the ball in Capart's hand more often. I mean, he might have got 10 or 11 touches. I think he scored twice. But that type of athlete, and the reason I'm saying that is you did see Kobe Haynes and Jonte Johnson play a little defense. They kind of rotated those guys out on Capart, and, of course, they had safety help on top, kind of a bracket coverage. And the Winsboro quarterback did a great job a couple of times of threading the needle and getting the ball to Capart. And once he got in his hands, it was like, you didn't take an easy breath until somebody tackled him. You may see some of that with these wide receivers talking about going both ways. Ever since Kobe Haynes has taken over quarterback, he really hasn't played a whole lot of defense. Jonte, they kind of had him on a pitch count with his knee all through district, and we did see him play some defense a little bit last week too. So that'll be interesting talking about the two-way guys. I know Coach David Haynes doesn't like to play them all day. He wants to keep them fresh. So when they get in on offense, they're rested up. So that'll be a good one. I'm going to go with Whitney. I'm a homer. I'd like to see this. I think if you're Whitney, this is the time to do it. If you're going to make a run, if you're going to, you got Kobe Haynes and a bunch of juniors coming back next year, but you kind of got an even region. These last 14, Jonte Johnson's a senior. In my mind, one of the best running backs in 3A for sure. Not only the state. We saw him last week chase down Camden Capart.
That was impressive.
It was a 2-time 100-meter state champion. Looks like he's healthy. With a knee brace.
Was extremely impressive. We talked about that on the show, or we might talk about it off the air, because I saw the clip, and I mean, and this is nothing against Capart, because he is a special player. Now, the one thing I do think in this game Whitney will struggle with is Pottsboro has multiple receivers. None of them are as good as Capart, but the totality of the group is better than the Winsboro wide receiving core, and that's where I think that they're going to struggle. But again, until somebody stops Whitney's offense, I'm going to keep rolling with him.
Yeah, and I think you're right. But I think Whitney has really solid cornerbacks. They just have trouble over the middle of the field. I don't know if it's a scheme or a personnel or just people not. And Coach Haynes said we're not making the right calls at the line of scrimmage. You saw a lot of it in Whitesboro. You saw some of it in Winsboro where dudes are streaking down the middle of the field, wide open, and so they got better. Still a couple of spots last week, but man, against this Pottsboro team, you better do better, because this team doesn't mess around. And Humphrey, he's going to make plays on defense too. I think he had 2 picks last week, or a fumble recovery interception. So they're going to run him both ways also. All right, let's go to Well, we did talk. We already talked La Vega, Lamar. Is there anything else we want to share?
Again, I think it's going to be a good game. I just think La Vega's a little bit better.
All right, we'll stay in a 3AD1 Region 2, Grandview Commerce, Friday, 7 o'clock in Mesquite. When I think of Grandview, I think of a well-coached team, a lot of hard-nosed kids. I think Blue Hubbard is absolutely one of the best 3A players in the state. That dude does it all for him, plays linebacker. He'll line up at quarterback and run the Wildcat. He'll go running back. He'll do wide receiver. They've got Mason Landers, their quarterback, Elijah Dominguez at running back. They got Sanders, I forgot it, Cason Sanders. They've got the freshman and Briggs Gents and they'll line him up at quarterback. They'll put him at receiver. I think he starts at safety. They've got a lot of good parts there, but when you look at Commerce and that quarterback Aiden Brown, the running back Kaimani Graham, they got a lot of firepower.
The craziness of this region, if you'd have told me these were the 4 teams left standing after you had Winsboro as a top 5 team for most of the year until Commerce beat them. You had Malakoff, who was young, but it's still Malakoff, and they're going to be really special next year. We saw them against Liberty Ilo. Liberty Ilo, though they did lose Poe, their stud receiver. But if you'd have told me it was these 4 teams, I'd call you crazy. Yet Commerce, week in and week out. And I know they got beat by Mount Vernon a couple weeks ago, but that game really didn't mean anything. They had nothing to play for. They still were going to win district because Mount Vernon had 2 losses. And I watched a lot of that film, and it was still close. It was 32-27. But Commerce went very basic in that game. But you talked about it, Aiden Brown. And this is a crazy story. Aiden Brown was at Big Sandy, a 2A school, and could not get on the field at quarterback. They played him at wide receiver. Now, another thing is Big Sandy, but they're not a good team. And it's just like, how did you let that guy not play? But, man, he is special. But you bring up the point of it's not just him. I mean, this was a team last year that was young and went 5-6 in a tough district, and all those are back. And then you put Aiden Brown, who's just a junior this year, by the way. You put him on top of that, and holy crap, man, Commerce is, in my opinion, right now the favorite to win the region. And I think that they will beat Grandview. You talked about Blue Hubbard. I have a funny feeling him and Aiden Brown are going to get to know each other very well this week, because talking with some of the guys at Grandview, they're definitely doing the spy. And if you're going to put a spy on Aiden Brown, it's got to be someone like Blue Hubbard, who he's a guy that doesn't look as fast as he really is. Watching him in person is completely different when you see him. Oh, he's different. Yeah, and him inside that tackle box, he doesn't lose. He doesn't lose against blockers, and he doesn't miss a lot of tackles. Now, you can get him on the edge, and I think that's where Commerce is going to work their magic. It wouldn't shock me to see Aiden Brown maybe not have the big game, but the running game for Commerce do, because they're going to run a lot of counters this week. You want blue going left as the ball's going right, and vice versa. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think Commerce wins.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm actually, I'm rooting for a Grandview Whitney rematch in the regional finals. That would be fun. But man, Commerce is so good, and Grandview kind of turned it around since that Whitney that loss to Whitney. Man, they've kind of just beat West, maybe beat some quality. I don't know. I'll go Grandview in this just because I want to see
Totally get that. By the way, kudo again. I talk Commerce on the Commerce show. I do a segment on their pregame, and it's just so crazy how these 2 districts bumped up against each other, and they're the 4 that are surviving. And it just shows you how, when we did our toughest district show, 6-3A and 7-3A Division I were 2-3, I think, or maybe 1-3. They were both in the top 5, and it's bore fruit, especially when you look at all these teams have a lot coming back next year as well. And I know realignment's about to hit, but all these teams have a lot coming back as well. And it's just crazy how tough these 2 districts have been. Now, I got to bring this one up. Columbus versus Franklin. I will be there. Tomball, first off, Tomball ISD is a great stadium, but more importantly, this has become one of the most must-see small ball football games in the state between these 2. Every year it's a battle, and this year you've got Franklin's offense, which, dare I say, in the era that the Lions have been in with multiple state championships and stuff, this might be their best offense all around versus, I think, the best defense in 3A Division I, and that's including Peaster and Paradise, two great defenses up in the upper part of the state. But man, this is strength on strength right here.
Yeah, what do you think about Franklin's defense? They've given up a few points in the playoffs. Do you think it's a little down? The offense is kind of up on them.
I take so much crap from Franklin fans on Smokey because I've said this, and it's not a knock on them. But if you go back and look through all their years, the year they've won state, their defense has never been the strongest point. They use their offense to protect their defense, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's complimentary football. That's the way it should be. And yes, I think that is their weakest part. But I don't think Columbus's offense is good enough to consistently exploit that. Now, we went and saw Columbus play Hitchcock, and I thought that the Schobel kid threw the ball pretty good. But then the very next game, he throws for like 60 yards. And Columbus is a team that tries to throw the ball. And to be fair, one of their best players, Braylon Fisher, got hurt earlier in the year. He hasn't been back. Each week, he's a game-time decision. I kind of feel like he's not coming back, but they want to keep floating that. If he comes back, though, it adds a different to the offense. But yeah, their defense is an issue, but at the end of the day, I don't know if Columbus can take advantage of that. Now, in saying that, I don't think Franklin's going to be scoring 40 to 45 points on them and running for 500 yards. Last year it was 24-21. 2 years ago it was 24-17. 3 years ago it was 24-21. So I'm going to cop out and say, hey, this is going to be a 24-21 game. I think Franklin wins it, though, and man, Franklin, it's weird to say Franklin's come out of nowhere this year, but this was supposed to be a down year for them, and here we are talking about them again.
Okay, so while we're talking through, before we get to our last game, so this is my thoughts. When you look at Region 1, 3A D1, that's your defensive juggernaut type teams, right? You get to Region 2, you've got these offenses, the greatest show on turf type deal. And then you get to Region, and I don't know much about Region 4, but when I look at Region 3, I think about kind of the total package, teams that can play a little defense and can score a lot of points.
1,000% agree with you. We literally were talking about that last night, how the Peasters and the Paradises, it's all about defense. And then you go to your region, and it's basketball scores. You go to Region 3, and as you said, it's probably the most complete, even though it's complete in that multiple teams have different strengths, but you still don't really have a team in Region 3 that's a complete. They are a juggernaut offensively and defensively. Both, like I said, Columbus offensive struggles. Franklin, again, not defensive struggles, but if you're going to beat them, you're going to score points on them. You're not going to lose a 7-3 game against Franklin. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Now, what's going to be interesting is when the Paradise or Peaster takes on the Commerce or Grandview or Whitney or Pottsboro. Who wins that? Because, you and I are old enough to remember it was always defense is going to win that game. We're not in that era anymore.
I don't think so.
You see great defenses get dismantled against great offenses now simply because you spread everything out. And when you spread everything out, that means one-on-one. Even if you're playing a zone, it's one-on-one. And every coach will tell you, it's not your best player that wins you games. You got to hide your worst player, the guy you have to play because you have no other choice. And in today's era, it's really hard to do that against offenses.
Good point. All right, let's talk Alvarado, Springtown, Friday, 3 p.m. They're up in the new Eagle Mountain, the Nike Stadium, I believe, up at the new Eagle Mountain High School, which is I think Coach Hayes tried to get that first round game there, and they were playing, so they didn't want to host. I heard it's really nice. I've seen pictures. But you got Alvarado, Springtown. DeMarcus Belton is who sticks out to me for Alvarado. He had 200 total yards last week and 4 touchdowns in a 51-43 win over Sulphur Springs. I think you kind of knew this little matchup was going to be brewing. I believe the winner gets Salina more than likely.
He gets Salina. And look, yeah, as you said, this is a matchup that we talked about all the way at the beginning of the year. We knew it was going to be special. I was really impressed with what Springtown did last week. Panther Creek did a good job of kind of game planning against Kane Hill, who's a special quarterback. And they jump up early 21-7, and you start thinking, okay, Kane Hill's not having his normal type of game, and they're down 21-7. What are they going to do? And then Anthony Lazardabal, I think that's how you say his name, he just exploded. U.S. 273 yards, 5 touchdowns, 32 carries. that offensive line for Springtown, it's like, look, we always joke, Springtown and Kilgore, they're across each other on the map, but they're the same town. Bunch of oil field workers, oil field sons. I always joke that the offensive line from Springtown on Friday night, they play a game, and then they go work the overnight shift at the drilling for gas and stuff because they're all men. I mean, I swear to God, some of those guys had a couple kids. I'm just saying they are massive, and more importantly, they love to fight and they love to be physical. Thing is Alvarado's the exact same way. Alvarado this year, losing Cordova, their quarterback last year, a generational talent. He graduated, and they have just kept on going. I'm going to go with Springtown at the end of the day, but man, I think this is going to be a war.
Man, I'm kind of torn. Growing up, I lived north of Eagle Mountain Lake when I was, through fourth grade to my freshman year in high school. And my buddy's dad would take us to football games. We'd go watch Northwest, Decatur, Boyd, South Lake, and we'd go watch some Pojo games. And I remember going to games over there, and there was not a seat available. You had to stand on the fence to watch those games. And then I think Alvarado, and Howes. I don't know if Howes is still open in Springtown, but it used to be a 24-hour diner. You can go in there and get a double pan fried chicken, fried steak at 4 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock.
All right, try that out this morning just to see if you're telling the truth.
Yeah, Howes was awesome. And then when I think about Alvarado, I think of back in the mid-'90s in the District 11 3A and them beating the crap out of Whitney 70-3 with Alton Houston and all those dudes. But I like Coach Wildray. I don't know him, but I'm a fan of his from afar. He did a good job at Grandview. DeMarcus Belton is something else. I'm going to go with the Alvarado Indians.
You talk about Walraven and what he has done. I mean, we talk about this with certain schools, and there's certain schools who they get known for one thing. And for Alvarado, was running that slot T, wing T hybrid that they did for 30 years. I can't think of the name of the coach that was there. He took them to a state championship and they lost. And Walraven comes in and he flips the script. And, and he started as a quarterback for Alvarado back in the day.
Oh, yeah. I played. Yeah, he was on the early 90s. I played against Alvarado 1 year, my junior year. Dusty Renfro was a senior. I broke my arm, so I went to the Cleburne emergency room, and I saw 3 more ambulances bringing in Whitney players that night. Dudes with head injuries and neck injuries.
Well, I'm trying to laugh at them, but geez.
It was rough, but we did get to go to Jose's in Cleburne after that and eat a team dinner. But, yeah. Adam Lee, all those guys, you kind of just were in awe because it was Alvarado and you thought they were going to go win state. Of course, they go and get beat in the first and second round. That's when 3A went from 300 kids to like 800 kids. You were playing teams double your size back in that.
3A is literally the reason they brought out the idea of divisions. Jeff Dixon, that was the coach at Alvarado, and I love it when Walraven got the job. He said his main goal is to have his quarterback throw more passes in one game than he did in the whole season. But yeah, this is going to be a fun game, and this is an old school Region 1, sometimes Region 2 rivalry. I just think Cane Hill is just is special, and especially with if that running game continues to do, and it's been good all year, but what they did last week against Panther Creek was impressive. I think this is a high scoring, like a 48-42 type game.
Yeah, you talk about the coaching change, and I'm bringing this back about me again, but what Walraven has done at Alvarado, it's funny to go to a Whitney game and see what Coach Haynes is doing with his offense, and you see those 2019 dudes that played for Bird and wouldn't snap the ball until there's 5 seconds on the clock and just grind it. Like Devin Wilson would have been tremendous in this offense. Kobe Haynes would have had like 100 targets instead of 40, So, yeah, it's cool to see a coach come in, change things up, and have really good.
All right, so I have to ask you this. Last time we did a show together, where are you feeling about Texas Tech right now?
I feel good. I'm going to be interested to see conference championship comes around and see what happens with those top 4 seeds. If they can, obviously, I don't know. Are they lined up to play each other? Is Indiana going to play Ohio State in the Big Ten? Is that how that works now? I haven't really studied that.
So now, again, first off, I'm glad the SEC commissioner kind of came out and said, hey, maybe it's time we get rid of the conference championship games, because some conferences, the automatic bid comes from that game, and other conferences, I think the Big 12, it just comes from whoever won the regular season. And it's really weird to me. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think And also remember the committee has basically said if you lose in a championship game, it might knock you down, but it will not knock you out of the playoffs. And I think that's fair because not every conference has them and not every conference has to play them. Now, in saying that, I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I know they're not good, but West Virginia is getting a little bit better, folks. Rich Rodriguez is starting to kind of build that team, and that is one of the worst places to go play at 11 a.m. on a Saturday. It's going to be 32 degrees out there. They've, over their last 3 games, they beat Houston, who was ranked at the time. They beat Colorado, who sucks. And then they almost beat Arizona State in Arizona. So I think Texas Tech's going to win this game, but this game's got me a little worried.
Yeah, last time we talked, I was a big Will Hammond fan. I was like, yeah, we need to start Will Hammond. Then we saw what happened there. I'm like, no, let's go ahead and get Baron Morton back in there. And now we got the Griffith kid. He, man, looked good in some mop-up duty against Oklahoma State. I was at that game. Of course, it was Oklahoma State. It was not, a big-time school. But I think Baron Morton's getting better. He's gone after this year, I believe. He'll be graduated. That defense and they lost the big defensive lineman. I forgot which one it was, but the defense is what, the straw that stirs the drink, creates the opportunities, and the offense is really good. Sometimes it's predictable. Sometimes it's frustrating, but I think they'll win out. And the path they're on right now would have them playing Georgia. I really don't like that. Maybe I don't know. Who would you rather play, Georgia or Indiana in the first round, or A&M?
Oh, well, I mean, me personally, just because I always wondered what Texas Tech could put that little thorn in Aggie's side back in the 90s. I would love to see that game. I would honestly rather play Georgia. I as a Texas fan, I know they ended up beating Texas badly, but if you actually watch the game, brilliant onside call by Kirby Smart, though. I still think Georgia, of those 3, lack. I know people want to knock Indiana because they're Indiana, but Indiana's the real deal, folks. They play really complimentary football. I think that Mendoza, their quarterback, is probably going to win the Heisman as long as he don't completely melt down, or if Christian Rodriguez has another 20-tackle, 3-touchdown game. I love Joey McGuire putting him in on offense. He claims it's not to help him win the Heisman. We're just trying to find points. Wink, wink. And I would love.
Well, he was a quarterback at Virginia. He transferred.
I would love for Texas Tech to play A&M in the first round. That would be, as just a fan of football in Texas, the state might explode, especially if somehow Texas could weasel their way in and the winner of them would play Texas or, something like that. I mean, look at how many teams in Texas could end up in the playoffs.
Yeah, SMU, they just need to win out, right? I think SMU, if they win out, they're in.
Yeah, they're interest chance with where their rating is. And by the way, Oklahoma State, great hire, bringing in Eric Morris from UNT.
Yeah, makes you wonder if UNT stays on staff, or you look at a GJ Kenney down south, or UTSA. What's his?
Jeff
what's his name? Yeah, Tretta. Yeah, I was at his Hall of Fame induction a couple of months ago. He's he'll get you ready. I mean, his speech at the Hall of Fame was awesome. I can see his guys going to.
Yeah, I love Jeff Traylor. I've known him for 20 years. When he was at Gilmer, I was broadcasting their first state championship in 2004. He's a great guy. I just don't know. They might look at that as a lateral move because, I mean, they're all in the same conference, basically. I don't know if that's the problem, man. When you're UNT, if you're going to figure it out, you've got to understand your place in the college world. So you've got to get good at hiring coaches every 3 or 4 years.
All right, man. Anything else? Yeah. So where are you headed? You're headed down to watch Franklin.
We're going to go Friday at 2 p.m. to watch Kilgore and Bridge City in New Caney. And then we're going to slide down to Tomball and we're going to watch Columbus and Franklin. And then we got the hotel for the whole weekend. And Saturday, we're going to go out to a sports bar, watch Ohio State and Michigan, and then settle back in at the hotel and have some drinks and just watch college football all Saturday.
Sounds like a plan. That'll be fun. All right, man. I appreciate you hopping on. Have a good one.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
If I'd ever leave, I couldn't bear to see her cry. Daddy says the farm won't live long without me, but lonely sometime. I think we ought to just let it die. I've seen half a Lubbock on hood of my car. Always the midnight norther was blowing south. If I tried to fly that way, they tell me I won't get far. I got half the Lubbock tying me down. And my older brother and his ex-wife and neighbors down the road, they say there ain't nothing better past the sign. Well, they might be right, might be wrong, might be blowing smoke. I guess I'll find out when I cross that county line. I've seen half a Lubbock on hood of my car. Always the midnight norther was blowing south. If I tried to